So hello, everyone. My name is Grace.
And my name is Medha, and we both are super duper excited to talk about hacking the gender gap.
Yes, for sure. So as you all heard, my name is Grace, and I am a rising senior at Northeastern University in Boston. I saw some fellow Bostonians in the chat, so feel free to type in #Boston if you're from there too. And I'm majoring in business marketing, minoring in CS. I was previously the director of marketing at TechTogether Boston, which is Boston's largest gender-focused hackathon. And I'm currently advising the WEHack team, which is a women uniting hackathon that my co-speaker here, Medha, has co-founded.
Yes, thank you so much, Grace. Some little bit of info about me. So my name is Medha, and I'm currently a junior at the University of Texas at Dallas. And before I co-founded WEHack, I was previously logistics lead of HackUTD, which is one of the largest hackathons in North Texas. And from there, I actually attended Hackcon last year, and meeting Grace and some of the inspirational gender-focused hackathon organizers out there, I was like, wow, we need to create something like this in Texas. So I decided to co-found WEHack with the prior president of Society of Women Engineers, Elisa Thomas. I think she's on this call as well. And so we decided to create this amazing event, and we can't wait to bring it to life. So honestly, Hackcon is a really special place in Grace and my heart, because that's how we met. And so we're excited to present this collectively.
Oh, Medha, thank you so much. The feeling is so mutual. Meeting you has been one of the most amazing things that's happened to me. And because of that, we are really great friends, and we're presenting this workshop to you all today. So for everyone that's here, like, put in the chat, like, your LinkedIn handle or your Instagram or whatever social platform that you want to use to connect with other HackCon attendees, because you never know, you could become great friends with them. So now that we've given our intros, let's have Medha dive into why hacking the gender gap matters.
Thanks, Grace. So I'm a numbers person. I bet you're numbers people. So let's just delve right into the statistics. So in 2017, only 9.5% of women graduated with either an engineering or computer science degree. And it's interesting because only 19.9% of women actually graduate with a computer science degree. And after you graduate from a college or university, only 30% of women actually stick on with an engineering or computer science degree, which I think for innovation to continue growing, we really need to change these numbers. And I think it starts from a hackathon. And this is not just an issue within our colleges and universities. If you go to the next slide, Grace, this is an issue worldwide. And I think, let's just drop in the chat, how long do you guys think it'll take to actually reach gender equality? Just type in some numbers.
Yeah, how many years do you all think it'll take for us to get there? 2050?
2050. 2 years, okay. Yeah, 2025, that is, I think, maybe 12.
Two.
Okay, this is very interesting. So I'm seeing around like 2 to 25 years, or maybe less than 25 years. Yes, 5 years, okay, 2022.
Yeah.
So why don't we actually listen from Melinda Gates and other people how long it might actually take. So Grace, if you could play the video.
In the US today, women make up about half the workforce, but we still aren't earning as much as men, rising as high, or having an equal voice in decision making. When are we going to see gender equality? We asked business students around Boston what they thought.
I feel like to actually get to real gender parity will probably take 30 to 50 years.
I think it'll definitely take another 10 years.
I really hope it'll be in the next 5 to 10 years.
In 2025.
2030.
I think that we are 50 plus years out.
I don't think equality will ever happen.
Well, at the rate we're moving in the US, research says we're not going to see gender equality for another 208 years.
What?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay. 200 years.
200 years? I won't even be alive.
When I found out it was 208 years away for gender equality, I quite simply couldn't believe it, because I think somewhere in my mind, I thought we were maybe 60 years away.
This is Melinda Gates. She's got a plan to get us to gender equality in our lifetime.
I started to say to myself, my gosh, we have to do something about this now.
So what's slowing us down?
More women are working than ever in the United States, but we aren't represented equally, and we're not represented in the really key sectors such as public office, academia, tech, investing, entrepreneurship, media. Those particular industries are having an outsized impact in the United States. And if women don't have equal representation there, we don't have seats at the table always on setting policies, making funding decisions, deciding what the workplace in the future should be.
Inequality is
Exactly. And I think Melinda Gates really encapsulated it. And when I personally found out that it's going to take 208 years, I was like, oh my gosh. I was just like all of you guys in the chat. I was like, this is insane. But I think as hackathon organizers, we do play an influential role in trying to bridge this gender gap. And I think we do play a huge role. So everyone on this call that is an organizer, commend yourselves. Give yourselves a pat on the back, because you guys are, your goal is to make an inclusive environment. And I think just Grace and I, we're just going to talk about some other ways that you can implement some other things to make your hackathon inclusive.
Definitely.
So great.
For sure.
So Grace, if you could go to the next slide, that would be great. Yes. So like what I mentioned, it starts now. And so in our presentation, we're going to kind of take you through the steps of how you can make everyone feel as if they belong. And so we're going to talk about the steps to take before a hackathon, during a hackathon, and after the hackathon. So now I'll turn it over to Grace to just kind of talk about one way that we can approach this before the hackathon.
Mm-hmm. So firstly, let's start off with what you can do before your hackathon to work towards closing that gender gap that exists in technology. And before I even dive into this, let me give like a personal testimonial where it really demonstrates the point that I'm making. So even before I attended my first hackathon, I was extremely intimidated by the idea of them, because I'm actually a business major, and I at the time didn't have a CS minor at all, had never taken any CS classes. And when I thought about going to a hackathon, I didn't think it was a space for me. I didn't think that I had a spot at the table there, because it's like what I thought was like a predominantly male dominated event. And if you're not a CS or STEM major, then you don't belong there. But that is exactly why inclusive marketing for your hackathon is so important, because for people like that who feel that way, you can make sure that they feel that the hackathon is a space that they can belong in and feel included in throughout the duration of the event. So what is the marketing of your hackathon even composed of? Well, it's composed of your hackathon's visual brand, your core messaging, your outreach, and who you're speaking to, what your audiences are, and when you're speaking to them, and where you're speaking to them. And so if you want to close the gender gap and work towards making sure that we don't have to wait another 208 years until reaching gender equality, all of these points in marketing are so much more critical. Make sure that, for example, the messaging of your event uses inclusive words like women instead of female, because the word women is more inclusive of trans individuals who are not biologically female. And inclusive and diverse imagery is also critical. So images of hackathon organizers, hackers, mentors, and sponsors from a variety of gender, racial, age, ability, and other identities on your social media platforms, your sponsorship packages, your website, your flyers really does matter, because it will attract people to your hackathon who, like I said before, like might have been like me, who were intimidated by the idea of attending a hackathon. And if they walk by a flyer and they see that there are, for example, women on the flyer and they identify as a woman, they can feel like, all right, I can actually attend this event. This is an event that maybe might not be as intimidating as I thought. So this is super important, and don't underestimate the power of marketing. And so with that being covered, Medha, why don't you chat with us about event support for your hackathon?
Yes, thank you, Grace. And she did make an excellent point. Branding is important, so make sure that you show that you are an inclusive environment through your hackathon. But I think also to establish credibility of the hackathon that you're trying to create, it's always great to get support from your university and college and show that they also support the mission that you're going for. This is just a personal experience. While co-founding WEHack, we reached out to our development program, and they were super duper nice and fortunate enough to actually help us connect to our platinum sponsor to Access, which is amazing. And faculty members such as like the dean of our engineering and computer science department and the president of UT Dallas in general want to be a part of this program. And I think using the network that your faculty members and some of the key people bring to the table is essential. And not only that, it can also lead to a great turnout, and you can get very diverse mentors and funding, and it leads to such a credible, inclusive environment for your hackathon. So especially if you're starting off, creating those connections and networking with some of those key faculty members really do play a huge role.
For sure. And universities and colleges, as mentioned here, need more diversity and inclusion in their STEM programs. So if your hackathon can provide the avenue for people like business majors to maybe consider a CS minor or CS major after attending a hackathon, that would be a win-win for them as much as it is for you. So with that being said, though, these are just two ideas, right, of things you can do before your hackathon. So I want everyone in the audience, please drop in the chat what other ideas you have for things that we can do before a hackathon in like the planning phases to ensure that we can have a diverse and inclusive space at your hackathon in the next cycle. And we'll also pause to address any questions too at this point. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat. I think it's right here.
Yeah, I think it's the right-hand side for me. I don't know.
Yeah. Listing pronouns. Yes, Carmen, love that idea. And I also really like the point that you made before. It's important to hear the voices of people not in tech yet and how they see CS from the outside, because you're right. I came into CS without any knowledge of it, and I really learned that it can be a driving force for a lot of positive social change in the world. Abel says we can have special prizes for hacks that improve gender inclusivity. Love that idea. At TechTogether Boston, when I went in 2019, I'm pretty sure we had a category that was related to that. So for sure, even if your hackathon isn't a gender-focused hackathon, you can still incorporate that idea, because you can really change the way that everyone at the event views gender equality and work towards that actively instead of just like passively, right?
So I'm actually seeing Andrew, he was talking about how they mostly use logos and dates, but if we have any advice in terms of how to make it more inclusive. So I think especially it depends on what type of hackathon that you're creating as well. So let's just say if it's a reoccurring hackathon that you typically already have hosted, it's a really great way to kind of like showcase photos that already like of participants that were part of the hackathon in prior years as well. So they kind of see how the experience might be. But especially for WEHack, we're like a very new hackathon. So some of the approaches that we have been taking is to kind of have videos to showcase our missions. So we actually have some of our organizers just talking about why we think it's important and steps that we're trying to create. And we're trying to hype it up through several different workshops and series as well. So those are just some examples that I could think of. Grace, do you have any more to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point, Andrew. Sometimes you can't necessarily like print like photos on all of our like print marketing materials, but also like consider working with your designers to create like simple avatars that demonstrate that, you know, there are people of different races and different like abilities and like all different kinds of like physical like identity like differences that allow people to see that like your event is very much a space where like they can still feel included. But also don't forget, like, you know, you have your website, which can be led to from like a flyer and a lot of like digital marketing. I love seeing hackathons that use like Instagram and Twitter and any other platform really where you can easily use photos from your event and you don't have to worry too much about like the cost of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I love actually the statement that Aditya made saying that they try and like reach out to other groups of students to recruit like some more people that might not be CS. And especially for WEHack, we have one of our partners because we co-founded this with Society of Women Engineers at UT Dallas, Women Who Compute, but we also have Women in Tech and Business, which is more of a business organization on campus, but they were also willing to be on board. So Aditya, I think you do bring a really great point by stating that as well.
For sure. Like if you have even on your flyer that you're partnering with Society of Women Engineers for your hackathon, that already says a lot, right? And so like, don't underestimate the power of that. And actually Medha will talk about that later, so I don't want to steal her thunder. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for your very thoughtful questions and comments. I love the audience that's here today. You all are giving me so much energy. So thank you for that. And with that being said, let's chat about what else you can do now, shifting gears towards during the hackathon. And during the hackathon, the opening ceremony sets the strong foundation and tone for the rest of the event. So it's actually really important that this portion of your hackathon reflects the intentional objectives of your hackathon. So if you and your hackathon organizing team value diversity and inclusion, you really should be bringing in diverse keynote speakers who come from a variety of backgrounds, perspectives, and have interesting stories to share with your event attendees. Because same point I brought up before, where traditionally underrepresented groups need to see role models that they can look up to. And your hackathon is a platform that can uplift the voices of inspirational individuals who rose up in their careers amidst the challenges that their identities and/or social structures have caused them to experience. So in the same vein, you know, you can definitely make your closing ceremony really impactful by providing winning teams with resources to continue their projects, but we'll actually talk more about that at a later point. And pro tip, if you want to make your opening and closing ceremony pretty interactive and fun, Mentimeter is a tool that you can use to have interactive real-time presentation software to interact with your audience, engage with them, and gather feedback from them. So feel free to jot that down as a tool that you can check out as well. And I promise it's not sponsored. This is just a cool thing that we came across. And now that we've talked about opening and closing, let's talk about the duration of the event and what you can do during that. So firstly, diverse workshops and speakers at your hackathons are also critically important because they can really empower your audience to not only sharpen their technical skills, which is of course important, but it can also be a place for them to sharpen their soft skills, their financial literacy, cultural agility, empathy, and so much more. So definitely plan those workshops with intentionality if you want to close that gender gap in the tech industry. And on the slide, you can see some examples of workshops and speakers. The speakers are examples of ones that Medha and I saw at an event in June hosted by Consulting. If anyone is familiar with Consulting, feel free to type in #Consulting in the chat. But they're really awesome. Jonathan is the CEO and founder, and Consulting is a career services company dedicated to supporting traditionally underrepresented and under-resourced students through their career journeys. So feel free to reach out to any of those speakers that were at a Consulting event we went to, and Jonathan as well, because he has a huge network. And then Medha will talk about diverse sponsors and partners now.
Yes, thank you, Grace. And like what Grace mentioned, having diverse workshops will really make our hackathon participants feel as if they're included. And I know Carmen mentioned something in the chat about your thoughts on imposter syndrome. And I think we will, maybe later if you have time, we'll share some of our personal experiences. But I think having diverse workshops really does bolster that, and it'll allow other people to relate that, hey, like we're going through the same issues as well, and how we can tackle it together. So great point, Grace. But now let's talk about the diverse sponsors and partners. So the sponsors and partners are essentially the people that also play a huge role in making the hackathon experience the way it is. So sponsors in general, they provide the funds for you to get some of the swag items, etc. But it's always important for the sponsors to align with their mission. So what I personally suggest is in your sponsorship packet, feel free to include a page to discuss some of the benefits in general of your hackathon and what your mission is. And what we do typically for WEHack is we also align it with a one-pager as well. So just like a one-page thing, like the stats of women in tech in our college, in the nation, and how we're trying to bridge that issue. So that's one way to gain diverse sponsors, so they know that you are actually interested. And feel free to get on a call with them if they want to learn a little bit more about your hackathon as well. So there's some examples of companies that we listed that are sponsors of WEHack and have been sponsors of WEHack and TechTogether Boston. So feel free to reach out to those as starting points as well. But partners, do not forget partners, because even though they might not provide money or funds, they do play a huge role in the experience. For instance, in WEHack, we have several women organizations that are interested in being partners. And I think that really does bolster the several endless opportunities for our participants to feel as if they belong in a community. And just getting swag items from the women organizations, or even hosting a women panel with some of these partners, is a really great way to get our participants riled up and excited. So those are just some ideas as sponsors and partners. And if you might want to reach out to other women orgs such as NCWIT, which stands for National Center of Women in Information Technology, or Rewriting the Code community, those are some really great examples as well of women organizations.
Mm-hmm. And for everyone listening, drop in the chat which sponsors and partners you've interacted with so that we can all get our brain juices flowing on which partners and sponsors to reach out to for the upcoming season. So now let's talk about other ways that you can make your event more inclusive. So when hosting a hackathon, you can firstly, like Carmen mentioned earlier, have every attendee be encouraged to have a physical name badge if it's an in-person event, but since that's not really possible at the moment, in virtual settings, you can encourage attendees to put their pronouns next to their like username on Discord, Slack, etc. You can inform attendees that everyone should use the pronouns that they see next to someone's name, but also be respectful of the fact that some people might not be fully comfortable sharing their pronouns. So be cognizant of that as well. Lastly, once we return to in-person events, having gender-neutral restrooms at your hackathon will allow participants who might feel traditionally uncomfortable in men's and or women's restrooms because, for example, they are gender non-conforming, is important to create an inclusive space for all. So with that being said, let's talk about your ideas on what we can do during the hackathon. Feel free to drop those in the chat, and we'll shout out some of our favorites.
So I see that Andrew actually asked a question, which is a pretty good question. So if most of your speakers come from sponsors, do you have any ideas on how to reach out so they can provide more diverse speakers? Grace, would you like to add some input to that?
Yeah, of course. I think that, you can really find ways to include not just one keynote speaker at your hackathon, for example. I know keynote, traditionally there's one keynote speaker, but what's the harm in having 2 or 3 keynote speakers, right? And having them each cap their speech at 5 minutes so that you don't have your hackathon attendees listening for way too long, but you could have one keynote for 5 minutes that's from a top tier sponsor, and then you can have one keynote that's from not from a sponsor, but someone that is from a diverse background that you really want to have their story shared. And also, closing ceremony and even mid hackathon ceremony that you might have, feel free to open those spots up to different speakers, and they don't always have to be sponsored speakers.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, and feel free to continue dropping ideas on what we can do during the hackathon to make it an inclusive space. We have so many amazing organizers here from actually gender-focused hackathons. So drop what has worked for you. And in the meantime, we will have Medha continue to after the hackathon.
Thanks, Grace. So now we talked about the steps to take before a hackathon and during a hackathon. But as hackathon organizers, our mission doesn't end there. We can still provide networking opportunities for some of our participants to take the projects that they created to the next level. Imagine if they were able to create such innovative projects during the hackathon in 24 hours. Imagine what they could do with more time. So I think especially reaching out to other co-founders of companies, or also some of the business departments within your university would be a really great way to allow some of these participants to grow their projects, because you never know what type of project that they might create. It could eventually be the next Facebook or even the next Google. So it's just amazing that we can try and help out in that mission. And it would be amazing to boost the number of minority founders as well, just because I think this will play a really huge role in addressing the gender gap. So these are just some suggestions that we came up with on how to kind of still provide the teams with resources. But if you guys also have any ideas or suggestions about this, feel free to share that in the chat as well.
For sure. The video that we saw earlier, 208 years, I don't have the patience to wait that long for gender equality, right? And I'm assuming from the reactions that we got in the chat earlier, most of us don't want to wait that long either. We want to be alive to see gender equality in our lifetime. So what you do after the hackathon can really transform that statistic, right? The more minority founders that we have out there, the ones who are contributing innovative tech solutions to pressing social problems especially, are really going to be the change makers that we need in this world right now, especially looking around us, right? So want to +1 emphasize this point right here. And yeah, if anybody has any ideas on what else we can do, right? These are just a few ideas. There's so many more. So drop them in the chat. We would love to shout you out.
Yeah, Thank you, Grace. But now, so Emily actually just said something. So creating infographics about topics such as imposter syndrome and self-efficacy. I think that's a really great point. I think showing that people are also just like you and having it in several different platforms and mediums and then showcasing it, I think is a really great point. So thanks for suggesting that, Emily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really want to build off of that idea too. You could even have a workshop about battling imposter syndrome and building your self-esteem, because like Carmen mentioned before, imposter syndrome is so real. We all go through it every day, even if we don't necessarily want to admit it, right? And if your attendees can kind of take a break from their project, maybe their project's really frustrating them for some reason, they can't debug something, and then they go to a workshop where they are being honest and real about the struggles that they have in the tech field, they can really, shift their gears and shift their perspective around the hackathon. And it's not something that's like really frustrating for them, but it's something that's like very empowering for them. So love that idea.
Yeah, and also as hackathon organizers, just creating a hackathon doesn't end there. I think we play a huge role in forming that community and playing a role in just addressing the whole gender gap issue. So Grace, if we go to the next slide, we actually included steps that you can take, embrace that in your communities. So starting from your college community as well, I think if they're able to attend a hackathon and feels as if they're included, I think it would provide them several more opportunities to be a part of the several organizations out there, such as Society of Women Engineers, Women Who Compute, and actually give back to some of the activities that are being done, or even present some of their experiences as well. And I think if we have more people that want to be part of these organizations or support the people in the minority, I think that's a really great way to be united and work on this issue together. I will also let Grace talk about the local communities and the workplace as well.
For sure. And to add on to Medha's point, remember the topic of male allies, right? And this is important, not just in the college community, it's important in the local community as well. No matter what gender you associate yourself with, you can be a powerful voice in this movement of closing the gender gap. So don't forget that either. And outside of your local community, you can now bring your newfound skills, abilities, and even a new perspective on equality, diversity, and inclusion, and make a difference in the local community by firstly appreciating the existing skills that people have and recognizing them for their efforts rather than just their identities. And that way we can form better relationships with those that are underprivileged and or under-resourced in their local communities, like local businesses, for example, that might have suffered from the current pandemic and economic devastation, to which we've seen that minorities have been much more impacted than like those within the majority. So expanding out from the local community, the workplace is also important to think about, because eventually every single one of us is going to be in the workplace in some capacity. And, or you might already be in the workplace and you might have experienced gender-based discrimination. So this is the unfortunate reality of the world that we live in, but we can definitely be a force for change if we act together, no matter what your gender is, to speak out against biases in hiring, meetings, pay, promotion, and even the way that we communicate with one another. Every single one of you listening, please think about this topic and drop in the chat some ideas that you can have on making the workplace more equitable and inclusive for all. And now Medha will cover what this means for the world.
Exactly. Thanks, Grace. So we kind of just talked about how one simple event can play a huge role. And I think it does play a huge role in the college community, local community, and in the workplace, because there's going to be several more people that we impact one step at a time. We do this together, one step at a time. And if you have more people on this mission together, that's amazing. And I think we can actually see this whole issue be resolved in less than 208 years if we're in this together. So why don't you guys kind of just put in the chat some ways that you will also eventually be like involved in your local communities or even in the workplace, some suggestions that you guys might have as well.
For sure. Yeah, I love Carmen's point about changing hiring practices and taking in consideration race or gender would be good. Yeah, some companies changed their policies after the Black Lives Matter movement, and we have a long ways to go for sure, but it's good to see that there are companies that are taking a firm stance on this and really like standing on the right side of history here, which is important. And Danae says, some companies have groups that support women. We just need to make sure that they all do. For sure. This summer, I worked at Salesforce as an intern, and they have a lot of employee like resource groups, and one that is dedicated to supporting women. So I was involved in that, and I actually did a speed networking event within that organization and absolutely loved it. So I really like that idea.
And even at Intel as well, there is WIN, which is Women in Network, and they had several amazing workshops as well. And that really did play a huge role in the company culture. So I do agree with that.
And really, we can keep these companies accountable, right? Like you can choose which companies to apply to, interview at, and accept a job at. And during the interviews, I know it's, maybe a little intimidating at first to ask questions like this, but really challenge the company and ask them about, equal pay for equal work, and ask them about policies that support traditionally marginalized groups, right? What does the company have in place? During the interview, you can question them and you can say like, what do you do? So that makes them realize that like, oh, wait, in order to attract better talent, we actually should be considering these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think Shrita also made a really good point about how mentorship is important. I think if I didn't have the mentors that I had, I don't think I would be influenced to be even a computer science major. I think they do play a huge role. And I think especially as college students as well, for incoming freshmen that are joining your college's communities, like feel free to reach out to them as well, being like, hey, like I'm here to help you. And especially due to this whole pandemic, it's harder for them to actually see what types of organizations are out there. So it's always great to just network and just show that you're always there for them. So great point, Shrita, on that. But I think we also kind of talked about the hackathon experience and how we can impact the world. And if you want to even network with us and just have a discussion about some of these issues, on the next slide, we have our LinkedIn, our Medium accounts, and even our email. So just feel free to like shoot us a text message through LinkedIn or something, and we would love to get on a coffee chat with you guys as well.
For sure. Hit us up. We want to continue the conversation even beyond HackCon. So thank you all for joining us today.
Yes. And also, this is super duper exciting. WEHack is actually going to be happening October 10th and October 11th. And it's actually funny because October 12th is my birthday. So it's like my little birthday present to myself. But it's going to be virtual, and I'm super duper excited. So I'm going to include the link to the registration on the chat. So feel free to register. It's open to anyone. So people in college and in high school that just want to attend a hackathon as well. And our team has been working super duper hard. So feel free to register. And we also included some of our social media handles as well. So feel free to follow us as well and just get to know the WEHack community.
Love that. I've been really helping Medha grow this until this point. So I'm such a proud friend and just like a fellow hackathon community organizer. So definitely check out WEHack and show us all that you're going to continue to do. And even like drop the link for your own hackathon that's coming up too, if you have the registration for that, so that we can all attend each other's events. And we have a minute left, so I don't think we'll be able to address too many questions, but drop your biggest takeaways in the chat here today. I want to see, we both want to see what you all learned from this workshop. So definitely, oh, so nice.
Oh, thank
you, Lisa. Ah, love you, girl.
You're such a queen yourself too, girl.
Oh, Carrie, I just saw the link that you just posted. Okay, so Carrie just posted something to help out the Black community called Build for Black Lives. I haven't heard about it until now, but I'm clicking the link. Oh, this looks really interesting. Wow. Okay, everyone check that out, because this is very much related to the topic of diversity and inclusion in tech. And oh, of course, Sabrina dropped the link for TechTogether Seattle, so feel free to check that out too. And I also recall that TechTogether Boston is happening in November, and it's virtual as well. So feel free to check that out. And I'm really proud of everyone that has spent all this time with us here today.
And thank you guys all for being such an amazing audience. Like, if you guys weren't active on the chat, we wouldn't have been super duper energetic to have this workshop. So thank you guys as well.
Mm-hmm. And Carrie messaged, and she's saying, we're looking for tech design work. Would love to help us promote to your hackathon communities. So feel free to hit up Carrie. Carmen, oh, you're so sweet. The workshop should be twice as long. I was actually so worried during the workshop that we were going to run way over time, but I think we did a pretty good job with time, and we really appreciate that you loved it so much. To echo Medha's point, the energy that you all brought was the reason I have so much energy. I haven't even had coffee today, so I'm like, wow, I'm shocking myself right now.
Yes, but thank you guys in general.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mary from MLH. Love you and your support. Everyone at MLH has allowed us to have this platform, so we're very grateful for the time, the space, and the effort that the MLH team has created and put into us and believed in us. Love it.
Oh, thanks, Caitlin. And thank you to all of the wonderful comments. I'm so glad that you guys learned something through the experience and you guys loved it, because that's ultimately what we're here for.
Exactly. And the conversation, like I said, doesn't stop here. You know, continue attending each other's hackathons, right? And talking about this topic. The more that we talk about this topic, the more progress we can make. And I also want to shout out again, Elizabeth just dropped the link for TechTogether Boston, an amazing event. That's the event that got me into the tech industry in the first place. Like, I literally wouldn't be where I am without TechTogether Boston. So for sure, attend TechTogether Boston and WEHack and any other gender-focused hackathon, no matter if you identify as a woman, a non-binary person, or you're a male ally, because this is the, this is the outlook and the turnout that we need in order to really make progress in closing that gender gap.
Exactly.
Awesome. So at this point, do we log off? I think people are starting to log off already, but I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, we can still hang around if you guys don't want to like talk to us, but I think there might be something happening at the stage. So feel free to also attend that as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you, everyone. You can leave the stream if you're done, but you're welcome to hang out as well. Okay, cool. What's everyone's plans for the rest of the day? Sunday. I'm hoping to go out and like play tennis with my brother. I've been doing that during quarantine because, you know, tennis is a sport where you can very easily socially distance and be safe and everything. Going to the park.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just been mostly going for runs, but it's pretty smoky in California because of all the wildfires. So I don't think it's healthy for me, but I'm still doing it for mental sanity.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like Medha, I'm really sending all my thoughts and to you and everyone in California, because it's just so sad to hear about the wildfires on top of COVID, on top of everything that's happening with the economy and civil unrest and everything. It's a very scary time in 2020, but you know, we are in this together. Like, people are uniting in ways that I never thought that was possible. And that really warms my heart, right? And we're learning how to be more aware of what our place in the greater society is and like helping out one another. So that's super important. Yeah, I just got into like a super serious topic. Sorry about that.
Yes, but yeah, I'm so glad that even people in SoCal are doing all right and just everyone. So I'm so glad. Wow, someone said I'm going to complete my Java lessons. I completely relate. I need to also start taking notes for my classes as well.
Yeah.
So I get you on that. But,
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
When I was taking my CS class this past spring, learning Java, it was a very rough time.
Oh yeah.
I have mad respect for everyone that is studying CS in school or self-taught or is a software engineer, because wow, that's a really tough job. It's really tough to sit there for so long and code and debug, especially the debugging part. Ooh, I have no patience. So when it comes to that, I'm just like, it's hard for me.
Yes, and Emily, that's so sweet of you. I'm so glad that you guys learned like several insightful things during Hackcon. So I'm excited to see how your guys' hackathon community grows at your university as well. Yeah. And Carmen, okay, this is a really cool question. So how's your experiences in CS at your university shaped you? So that's a really great question. So basically at my university, I go to UT Dallas in Richardson, Texas. And basically the majority of the university is either engineering or computer science. So I thought that it was very interesting. But I think that also shows how several of our like engineering and computer science organizations do play a huge role within like the UT Dallas experience. So I'm currently the president of our Society of Women Engineers section, and co-founding WEHack has been amazing. But I'm also involved in like in another club called ACM, Association in Computing Machinery, and I think just being part of some of those communities show like how we have like a tech like lifestyle and stuff, and but we're also people at the end of the day, and we're just there to socialize. Like I still remember just hanging out with some of these people as well. So that's just a little bit about my life at UT Dallas. I know Grace comes from a little more of a business background, but she is a CS minor. Oh my God, we're just a group of people. Yeah, there's a story behind that.
Yeah, I'm a CS minor. At the time that I was like thinking about CS, I didn't have enough space in my academic schedule to fit in like a CS major or like double major. So I just went with a minor. I just wanted to try it out. I've taken like 2 classes for it already, just like the first intro CS class and the second intro CS class. And they're really difficult for sure, because I'm not sure if like this is the way that like other CS programs operate, but like I feel like our intro CS classes at Northeastern kind of are difficult deliberately, designed to be difficult, so that anyone who isn't necessarily fit for the field is kind of like maybe weeded out of it. I don't know, maybe that's just like my take on it. And I hope that my university doesn't come after me for saying that. But yeah, I don't know, like I have an aunt who's a software engineer, and I told her about what my assignments were like. And she was like, yeah, this assignment is designed to be unnecessarily difficult for someone that's at your level at the beginner stage. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like at office hours, we would have like 2 TAs for every maybe 30 students, or sometimes even more than that. And you would only get maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, not even with a TA. Actually, not even 10 minutes, maybe like 5 minutes with a TA max. So at least that's how it was like in the intro classes, because the intro classes had like hundreds of students, right? So that ratio isn't so great. And yeah, made it really difficult. Because like I wanted to seek help, but the help wasn't always there. And I actually had to get like external tutoring because my university didn't have enough resources to help me through the course and pass it. And I several times I thought about dropping it, but I have stuck with it, and we shall see if I finish that minor.
Yeah, no, in fact, in my like, for instance, I took a Unix class, and the professor was like, he is a co-founder of another company of his, and he's also a professor. So I think he gave us a lot of life applicable projects, and I think it's been really influential, and I'm able to like apply it in my internship. So I really do see like that application aspect to it as well. So yeah.
I love that Medha is like really positive about it. I apologize if I felt like if I came off as a little too pessimistic. But yeah, like in terms of like the good things about the program, I feel like there's very little barriers to entry at my school. Like you can take the intro CS class without even being a CS major or a minor. Even if you're just interested in learning more about the field, you can still take the class without having to get approval, sign off, which is really great. And then like during the course, there's definitely like project-based applications that you can, find that opportunity to take those skills and actually build something, as opposed to like just solving homework problems, you know what I mean? So I think that was good. Projects have always been more fun to me, but I also appreciate when the course is designed so that they actually give a more reasonable time frame for students to continue their projects. Yeah, because sometimes I felt like our projects were like overlapping with like exams. And I was like, okay, we have a midterm due this week, and we also have a project due this week. I don't know if I have the mental capacity to do that.
Oh yeah, no, I've been in that situation. There's been like a couple midterms, and then like my different classes, and then they like assign an exam like the next day. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is a lot, but hey, we get through it. We're in this together, right?
Exactly. Really, like, it's easier to get through it when you have a good partner, though. Like,
oh yeah,
anyone had that experience, right? You get assigned to a partner, and your partner doesn't show up to your meeting, or your partner does the entire project before working with you at all, or like maybe your partner is just like a difficult person to communicate with. Sometimes that can be the reality of it, right? But at the same time, it can train you to work better in a work environment. Like in the work environment, you're not always going to have colleagues that are very easy to work with, communicate with, understand, and empathize with. So when you are exposed to that in college, you're able to come into that work environment and handle those problems in a more constructive and effective way, in my opinion. Yeah.
But anyways, I think I have to head off because my parents are calling me for lunch too. So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go, but thank you guys so much for being an amazing audience again, and I can't wait to have future coffee chats with you guys. So super duper excited. Okay,
Yes.
so bye guys.
Bye everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy the rest of Hackcon.